Ladies and gentlemen, now it's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Good work.
Wow! Whoa! I can't believe it. Guys, welcome back for another episode of It's... I know, we're just as amazed as you guys are that the show works and is on time and you can see and hear us right now. I know I am. Welcome back for another episode of It's Too Late. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by the number one producer in late night, Dave Willimowski. Dave! How are you doing?
I'm doing good, all things considered. Doing great. And yeah, every week it's a miracle that we're here. It's great. How you doing?
Isn't it though? I'm doing good. Because we've had this issue the last few weeks where the audience applause is so deafening, just the gales of laughter and cheers that I can't even hear you, right?
They drown me out.
But our warm-up comedian came out ahead this week and said, "Guys, tone it down." Want to make all of our announcements at the beginning of the show because we're terrible at remembering to do this stuff. By we, I mean me, and by me, I mean you, because you're supposed to be reminding me of the stuff. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the show on all the platforms that we're on. And there's a list somewhere. That's another. Go ahead and write that down in your note too. That's another thing we should have is a list of the things. You can support us on Patreon, PayPal, and also here's a good programming note. For the sports fans in your lives, let them know that Sports Ball with Mike and Alan is returning. We've got the date, September 1st, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh. September 1st is the return of Sports Ball with Mike and Alan. Oh, I tell you, I'm so excited. We're starting Sports Ball back for the start of football season. I am so excited for football season this year, Dave. Yeah, right? Yeah. Are you excited for football?
I am excited. I like football. That's my favorite.
It's like technically it's already started because the NFL preseason has already begun, but that's not real football. You know what I'm saying? The preseason's kind of more of a extended tryout, and sometimes the product on the field during the preseason can be a little lacking. I think we can all agree. Even the announcers in the booth get themselves into some sticky situations. Take a look at this.
You have to like when there's a guy coming right in your face and he just sits in there and delivers it really well.
Wow.
Dave, you ever been known to... No, never mind.
That was graphic.
I didn't do it. I'm just trying to watch some football, Speaking of a guy coming right in your face, Vice President Kamala Harris is back in the news, ladies and gentlemen. Fresh off some recent public speaking gaffes, she did a town hall for CNN where she was speaking to the ladies in the room about what it takes to succeed in a man's world. Take a look here.
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to when you if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend. Yes. and then the little thing catches it, and then so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more.
So you but rely on.
I mean, we got it. It's a process, right? You don't just do it. It's a process.
Thank you, Officer Harris, for letting everybody know sometimes you got to do some favors if you want to get ahead in life.
Oh, I see what you did there.
She really blows the competition, doesn't she?
Huh.
Surprised she didn't go to the University of South Carolina because she really knows how to game cock.
What does that even mean?
Pride is a sin, but give one thing to Kamala. She's never had a problem swallowing it.
Yeah. I think you need to stop.
I don't think so, because I think she'd want us to suck every last drop out of this segment.
Oh my God.
Guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week and the viewer mail right after this commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I want you to tell you a little bit about tonight's sponsor, which is Pat Crest Botanicals, which you can find at patcrestbotanicals.com. Promo code It's Too Late for 30% off all your CBD and Delta 8. I know, 30% off, right? Isn't that crazy? I actually have some right here. Here's the Ascend 3000 that I use every. Yeah, can we get a?
Yeah.
Look, I'm doing my best Kamala Harris impression.
It's just never gonna end.
They're never gonna. We're gonna lose every sponsor. It's over, dude. But that's Pat Crest Botanicals, patcrestbotanicals.com. Promo code It's Too Late. Hey Dave.
Good stuff. Yes, Alan.
What time is it?
It's time for meme of the week.
Some people call it parenting. I call it raising cream pies.
Yep.
Dave, you ever been known?
Raised a couple.
Yeah. All right. Everybody gets 2 or 3, apparently. I don't know. But we do have a bonus meme. Check out the bonus meme. I'm here to suck cock and own the libs, and I'm all out of cock. Wow.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I told people that I told people that I hired our friend Ryan Seifert to be the new lead writer of the show, and everyone thought I was joking. You could see I wasn't, right?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it post that.
Yeah. I actually saw some people in the comments saying like that's not for real. Like what are you doing hiring Ryan? And now everyone sees the answer. I need a fall guy.
There you go.
Yeah. You know how, like in football, if the coach is on the hot seat because they're losing too much, he fires all of his staff first to that's kind of what's going on right here. So, anyway, I'm gonna open my fortune cookie while we answer the viewer mail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, take your time, Dave. No, go away. Oh my god, I'm getting crumbs all over the place, dude. Where's Kamala when you need her? I thought on a fortune cookie it was supposed to give you your fortune, not just make a statement. Nah. This says you are sociable and entertaining. You are sociable and no one can. I don't even know why I'm holding. No one can read that. Yeah, I can barely read it. I need my readers. You got your readers? I got my readers. All right, can you pass me those? You are sociable and entertaining. Well, if this monologue tonight is any indication, you are correct. Fortune cookie. All right. Viewer mail. I probably should have opened the viewer mail instead of opening cookie. Yeah. Andrew Avery writes, there is a lot going on. There's a lot that goes into this show, and some of it's okay.
Yeah. Some of it's pretty okay.
Andrew Avery writes, Dear Alan and Dave, if a French dairy exploded, would debris be everywhere?
Oh. You'd think.
I'm going to answer Andrew's question with a little bit of background on me. Did you know that my father was a dairy farmer?
I did not know that.
That makes me a dairy heir.
It does. I got it.
Jesus Christ. All right. Clay Davis writes, Dear Alan and Dave, what brand of guitar do you play? If you could own any guitar, what would you choose? Dave, do you play any instruments? Clay, what brand of guitar? I play a Martin Ora, and if I could own any guitar, it would be a Martin Ora.
Oh, you got your dream guitar.
I do have my. What about you, Dave?
I play like a little guitar, a little drums, everything poorly, not good at all, but yeah.
Well,
growing up, I had a PV Predator.
Yeah, well, you're a Renaissance man, you know. You like to.
Yeah, I dabble.
To spread it around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't tell if you don't. Keith McQuarrie writes, Dear Alan and Dave, if your life was a movie, what genre would it be? Drama, action, romantic comedy, horror, etc. Dave?
Oh.
What about you?
I guess it would be it's not a horror, not too dramatic. It'd have to be a comedy or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go with comedy.
I actually told Anna Kay this. I said, hey, check out this question by Keith. And she said, well, what are you going to answer? And I said, I think I'm actually going to answer a romantic comedy because, there's some romance, there's some suspense in there, a little sexual tension, but some laughs. And her response to me was, am I a joke to you? All right. So,
Wow.
So thanks, Keith. Aaron Kittner writes, Dear Alan and Dave, what is your dream car? Dave, you got a dream car?
Oh, it used to be like those sporty ones. Like I always like the Lamborghini. I don't know how to pronounce it, Countach or whatever. But then I realized that I'll probably never fit into one of those. So now it's like one of those bigger BMWs, maybe a big luxury ride. I think I'd go with that.
I thought you were gonna say, like, when you were a younger single man, it was these sporty cars, but now it's a fuel efficient van.
Yeah,
That's your dream
just want a
car.
minivan with power windows.
I don't know. You guys were rocking the Suburban. I mean, it looked pretty good.
That was really nice.
All right, yeah.
I could do that.
69 Corvette Stingray. There you go.
Yep. Okay.
I like questions this week. They're all talking about our dreams. I like it. Yeah,
Very
this is nice.
inspirational.
Jonathan Carranza writes, Dear Alan and Dave, how many holes does a straw have?
Oh.
Now, I actually thought about this, believe it or not, and I decided it's only one, and I'll tell you why. So it's the same type of question as a donut, right? How many holes does a donut have? And the answer is one, because when you order donut holes, they're a single object, right?
Go, there you go. Can't argue with that. Yeah.
Boom.
That's bulletproof logic right there.
Answer's one. Yeah, I know. I base everything around how donuts are shaped and formed.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur.
All right. Eric Eli writes, Dear Alan and Dave, if an apocalyptic event were to... What happened to the dreams,
yeah.
Eric? All right.
It
Were
went
to
south.
occur, what are the top 3 items you would want to be in possession of? I mean, honestly, if it's an apocalyptic event, then probably Annika. Well, I mean, she's not really an item, but Annika, and you know what? I only need 2: Annika and the Holy Spirit.
There you go. That'll see
That's
you
all
through.
you need. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you, Dave?
So
So a Lamborghini.
My blood pressure medicine, probably some alcohol to consume and trade, and man, it's like consumables. My computer wouldn't do me any good. There's no electricity. Yeah, maybe some kind of nicotine. I guess cigarettes. I could sell those too.
Yeah, so Dave, you know how it says on the side of the medication bottle that you're not supposed to mix with alcohol? Like, that's not a suggestion.
Does it say that? I never really looked at it.
The experts, am I right? Carl Huber writes, Dear Alan and Dave, is there a balance between chaos and order in our universe, or are they both just illusions to make us feel less alone in an unpredictable world?
Oh.
Dave?
Yeah. Well, I believe that there's definitely chaos and order, and they're not always in balance, but that's our job here. That's the meaning of life is to create order out of chaos and keep it evened out. Because you can have too much order, and then it's tyranny. So our job is to equalize it.
I think that's man's like great struggle is to bring order to chaos.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately you fail, but it is in the doing that we find. I don't know. I should have thought about that. I was too busy thinking about the donut holes in the straw to get around to this one, Carl, refer back to Jonathan's question. Ryan Seifert writes, Dear Alan and Dave, what is something people do that annoys the hell out of you? Dave, what's something people do that annoys the hell out of you?
Oh man, I should really read these ahead of time. Just being inconsiderate in general. A lot of people just not thinking about anybody else, and mostly driving and stuff like that. But yeah, that'd be it. Being inconsiderate.
Yeah, I think there's a severe lack of kindness, and I don't mean that in like a mushy sort of way, but very seriously, like it's amazing. It's amazing what people are willing to do for you and what you can accomplish. Just starting off with the baseline of you're kind to people.
Yeah, it's worked
Yeah.
for me.
And look where it's led you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're
Living the
right.
dream.
Amen, brother. And finally tonight, Marilyn Wilimowski writes, "Dear Alan and Dave, did your family take vacations together when you were little? If so, what is the most memorable one for you?" Did your family take vacations when you were little, Dave? I mean, were you ever little, like physically? I don't know.
Yeah, I was born little. I got bigger, but
All right.
yeah, we would do vacations. I don't know if we do them every year, but we'd end up in the Allegheny woods, the forested mountains and stuff like that, and we'd get a cabin, and it's not like super posh or anything. It was like a real cabin, and I have a lot of memories from that. But they all kind of blend together, so I can't really think of one particular vacation. But it was just being there and really enjoyed it, spending time with the family and stuff like that. Getting yelled at somewhere new.
Yeah, man, when our family ever took a vacation in the woods, my mom and dad would go home, and me and my brother had to make our way back. It's like, all right. I mean, you know, it's nice to get out of the house.
That's abandonment.
Guys, we're going to be back with our friend Jason Rink, the most canceled filmmaker in America, right after this commercial break. Stick around. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Email us at info@alanmosley.tv. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Our guest this evening is here for round 2. He's the host of the Cancel Proof podcast, as well as the most canceled filmmaker in America. Boy, I thought that was a joke the first time you were here, but I'll be damned if that wasn't the truth, not 24 hours later. Jason Rink, welcome back to the show.
Hey, man. Good to be with you. Glad to be back.
Jason, I want to start off right there. The last time you were on, we talked a little bit about some of the projects you were working on at the time and still are working on. And you had teased for us that you might have rubbed a few people the wrong way. And boy, it literally wasn't 24 hours after the show aired. You ran afoul of some trouble. And I know a lot of the audience is already familiar with it, but I wanted to know if you could give us a quick recap of what all has gone down, but really importantly, how have you rebounded since then?
Yeah. Well, it is funny. That was a very timely podcast. And at the time, I had a film called The Most Canceled Man in America that we were going to be screening at Freedom Fest at the Anthem Film Festival. It had been, accepted into that film festival. And then through a series of events, and what I hadn't announced at that point in time on your show was that after they accepted the film into the film festival, they ended up pulling the film. And they pulled the film as a result of some uproar that happened around it because of the individual that the film was about is a guy named Nick Fuentes with a podcast called America First. He is a well-known rabble-rouser on the political right. And, a number of libertarian organizations or I don't know, National Review was one of them, so I don't know that you'd call them a libertarian organization, but a number of organizations that were tied to Freedom Fest, when they heard about the film screening, they got really mad about it. The Catos of the world, Reason, National Review, what have you. And it resulted in Freedom Fest withdrawing the film and threw me in a situation where I had these long-standing relationships with Freedom Fest. I judged their film festival just last year. And I decided that I needed to sort of call them out on the whole situation. And it ended up turning into sort of a big thing on, in libertarian circles. when I actually went to Freedom Fest, I heard I was, one of the more talked about individuals there, even though, I barely set foot into it when it happened. But so that sort of blew up. The film got pulled. And I went public about how I didn't think it was right, that the film is really about, the civil rights violation and due process rights violation of Nick, because the federal government had seized $500,000 from his bank account, put him on a no-fly list, because he was at the Capitol, not in the Capitol, on January 6th, and was a part of the Stop the Steal movement. And so that's sort of the nature of that blow up. And then really what happened after that was crazy, because as a result of the film not screening at Freedom Fest, Nick decided to have his own screening in Vegas at the same time. And so lo and behold, he pulls together a 150-person private screening. But somehow, people had got wind of this. It resulted in me actually losing my reservation at the Mirage in Vegas, then being put on a do not book list at the Venetian Hotel across the street, and almost being escorted out of the Mirage by Mirage security when I tried to set foot into Freedom Fest, which I was a paid ticket holder to. So it really escalated in some ways I didn't realize. And the how that happened and everything is another story, or is an additional part of the story. But yeah, so I found myself getting kicked out of Vegas hotels that are fine having, cartel members and the mafia and pimps hang out in. And yet, just because I made this film about a, 23-year-old live streamer, I found myself persona non grata in Vegas hotels.
Now that's really interesting. Just that one aspect, really quick before we move on, is that, don't get me wrong, Jason, I think you're a really talented guy. I think everyone can agree you're a perfectly handsome man. However, all of us here that sort of revolve around libertarian anarchist type circles, we know that we're a niche audience. We're not exactly the mainstream. And you being a filmmaker, your job way more often than not is you're the man behind the camera, right? You're the guy running the tape, not the guy in front of the microphone. And yet you're identified on security cameras at these different places that you're going and being escorted. I mean, that had to freak you out a little bit. I mean, were you freaked by it, or did you just laugh it off?
Well, what was interesting was when we had our reservation canceled at the Mirage, that was about 2 weeks before the event, we got an email and they were like, "We have received information that you're holding a ticketed event in one of the suites." I had like a suite that cost thousands of dollars there. And, I've been to Vegas suites where people have get-togethers in them all the time. It was like a 1,600 square foot suite. And so we were going to have an event. It wasn't a ticketed event. I hadn't sold tickets to anything. But they said, "Yeah, we heard you're doing this, and so you're not welcome here," which was sort of funny. And I was like, okay, whatever, And then I booked a room at the Venetian, which is across the street, but with it's not part of MGM Resorts. And I was like, "Oh, this will be fine. I'm just going to go to a different hotel." Well, the funny thing about the Venetian was I was in the cab on the way from the airport to the Venetian when I got a call from them that our room was not going to be honored. So I'm like literally in Vegas, have all of our bags, and they're like, "Yeah, no, you can't check in." Was very curious. I was like, how did this happen? How did this get contagious? Right. And so, we ended up, frankly, going to the Venetian anyway and attempting to check in, kind of like, "Hey, we don't know what's going on." Got a few answers from them, found out that we were on a do not book list. So someone had put us, by name and face on a do not book list. And then when I went to the Mirage, back, because Freedom Fest was going on there, I wasn't staying there, but I had something happen where I was walking through a hallway and 3 security guards came and they said, "Mr. Rink, stop right there." I had no name tag on. Okay. So they knew who I was visually. They told me they were watching me through security. They made a phone call. I waited around and they said, "Oh, okay, you're clear." And they let me stay. Well, that situation was very curious to me because I was like, okay, how did I go from getting my film banned from Freedom Fest to getting kicked out of 2 hotels and somebody having my picture and name as a possible troublemaker in the resort, right? And so I did reach out to Freedom Fest for some answers. I said, hey, listen, I just want to let you guys know, I just had security stop me and almost kick me out. And I said, now I assume they called you guys and you're the ones who gave them the all clear, but I'm trying to figure out, how did I end up on the list to begin with? And I got a denial from them that they had anything to do with it. They said that the Mirage was doing things by their own choice, and they didn't have anything to do with it. Well, I felt that was still curious, so I went ahead and I went and had a conversation with the head of security at the Mirage. See, because I had received a report from another individual who had told me that one of the Freedom Fest organizers had communicated to him that they were watching me, and they knew that they were watching me in the hotel. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is not all adding up. So I went to the head of security. I talked to him. I said, look, am I ever allowed to book a room here? Why am I being monitored? All of this. And he said, yeah, listen, we don't have a problem with you, but we have a client here, Freedom Fest, who, obviously is spending a bunch of money with them. And they gave us a list of people to keep an eye on. And you were on it with the photo along with a couple other people. And so long story short is, here's what I actually think happened. What I actually think happened was the Mirage realized, number one, that they were going to have trouble kicking me out of the hotel for any reason if I was a registered guest. So they decided to cancel my reservation. And then at some point, when Nick had decided to do the counter screening and they thought maybe Nick was going to come cause trouble and maybe I would, which they had no reason to believe that. In fact, I had even reached out to them before I bought a ticket and I said, hey guys, I still want to attend, but I'm not going to cause any trouble. I'm just going there to see friends. Don't worry about it, and they gave me the okay to come. Well, somebody ended up turning a list over and said, hey, if you could just keep an eye on these guys. And I think what the Mirage did was they just did a professional courtesy. And they turned that list over to another hotel. And that's sort of the domino effect that happened, right? And security ended up, approaching me because I'm on the list. So, while I don't think Freedom Fest ever intended to get me kicked out of 2 hotels or kicked out of the venue, I think by them turning in a list and letting them know, hey, you need to monitor this guy, Vegas takes these things very seriously. And so they definitely had a hand in it. They've never admitted it to me, but I believe the friggin' head of Mirage Security telling me this story, he's got no reason to tell me anything different. So that's what happened there. I would definitely say it's sour. I was in a position where I was ready to sort of like, mend fences with everybody at Freedom Fest, and like for everything to be cool. And yet this was the final thing that for me, it really soured it for me because I'm like, they put me on a watch list for no reason. Like this is something that, I would expect from like the government. Right. And it's like, what was the reason to put me on a list and have me monitored by internal security? Have I conducted myself in any way or behaved in any way that would warrant that kind of treatment? And when they denied it to me as well, didn't have the respect enough to tell me what happened, and I had to go digging on my own to get to the bottom of it. For me, that was really the issue. So that's the final, and I haven't really talked about those details anywhere else. This is a It's Too Late exclusive right now. Breaking.
Ooh. Now this is such a tough situation, Jason, and because something that I thought when all of this was unfolding, and now and I appreciate you giving me that new information because I had been wondering, if me being a nobody, if I call my local McDonald's and say, hey, don't sell Jason a Big Mac, he's bad news, they're gonna laugh and hang up the phone. So someone with some clout had to step up and say, hey, we want this guy hassled, watched, band, some combination of those things. It wasn't just a nobody; it was somebody, and it was deliberate. You were put on a watch list, and so that's good to know. However, something that was just gnawing at me during this whole episode was there were other people, and I'm not naming names or calling anyone out, but there's other people associated with Freedom Fest that are perfectly good people. There was other speakers and presenters and all that are going, that are people that you and I may admire and enjoy, and we're perfectly happy to see them succeed, and I'm perfectly happy to see them invited to events like Freedom Fest. But Jason, they did you wrong, man. And so it's like, at what point do you say, this is no longer just a personal issue just for me. I actually want to see these people suffer consequences. And if I can't personally hurt them, at a minimum, I want their organization to fail. I want their event to be worse than it was because this is what they've done to you. I mean, who will it be next time? They obviously, I guess what I'm getting at is that they've obviously shown that they're capable of being this way. And I tend not to give people the benefit of the doubt that, look, it won't just be you. Someone else will wander off the plantation tomorrow, and then it'll be them, and then it'll be the next person. And I love seeing the bad guys lose. So are you truly at a point where you've wiped your hands of it, or do you genuinely have the attitude of, I'm going to actually actively tell people my story and hope they don't support them?
Well, I'll say two things about that. Number one, for me, it's like, in a lot of ways, it's water under the bridge. I mean, in that it happened, it went down the way it did. I have all the facts. One thing that really bothered me is there's some high-profile people in the libertarian movement who I don't even know, like I don't even have a relationship with, who were claiming to have the real story about what happened because they had talked to all the Freedom Fest organizers and had publicly accused me of being dishonest about how it went down. People who never asked me directly, they read what I read, and then they had conversations independently about all of this. And I'm like, guys, here's the problem. They're lying to me about what happened. Like, they put me on the watch list. Like, I'm sure that's not information they were giving other people, right? And so one of the things that happened that really bothered me is it's like this whole gossip machine started because, and I know this to be true, when I first started going on podcasts about this, organizers from Freedom Fest started reaching out to those podcasters. Like, I announced I was going on several. And Bob Murphy was one of these. I said I was getting ready to go on his podcast. And then when I sat down for the podcast with Bob Murphy, before we got started, he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, Freedom Fest reached out to me. They wanted to talk to me before I did this podcast, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, what is happening? And they did that to numerous podcasters. And then they went to a bunch of people on my friends list, like people they knew who knew me and wanted to have all these side conversations with them, people who are not involved in anything. And I was like, this is very strange behavior. And so they were going and having private conversations with people who are connected with or associated with me to give them, quote unquote, their side of the story. And in a lot of ways, they were just poisoning the well, as far as I'm concerned, because some of the people they were talking to have no relationship with me. And so it's like, it's their word, respectable organization versus canceled filmmaker who hangs out with some guys on the fringe alt-right or whatever. Rink's hanging out the MAGA crowd, he's trouble or whatever. And so that was one thing that really bothered me, because here's what I think. I think people need to have these conversations one-on-one. And I only went public with my story originally because I knew that they were trying to sweep it under the rug and that they were trying to reframe what happened. They never wanted to admit that it was prominent libertarian leaders of organizations who pressured them and that they responded to that by pulling the film. They never wanted to make that public. They wanted to not let that ever come out. And I wasn't going to let them do that. And so, there's a number of things around all of this that have really troubled me and has exposed what I think is just some I don't know, something that's very unpleasant beneath the surface here. Some of it's just humans being humans and acting the way that people do, But all of that being said, I have no vendetta against them. Like, I still would like to see them succeed in doing whatever they can do and will do. I think that their success their mission that they claim to be about, I think that there's a lack of integrity that is going to make that mission less likely to be achieved on its own. I think that there's this just points to some things that are problematic, that will prevent them from standing up around a number of things. Look, the woke mob came after them, and SPLC wrote an article, saying Andrew Yang is at Freedom Fest, who they have Reed Coverdale, who, he talked to this guy who's a Holocaust denier, and Dave Smith interviewed Nick Fuentes a couple times. And by the way, they were going to have a Nick Fuentes film, but they got rid of it, and so it was like the SPLC came after him anyway. You cannot appease these people, right? And so the thing that makes organizations and people cave to that stuff anyway, that's going to be the downfall as far as I'm concerned, is that what it is that generates their willingness and wanting to cave in the first place. That's just going to create a world of problems for them trying to move forward in a powerful way to spread this message of liberty. So that's me saying, it's water under the bridge for me. I don't intend on participating in Freedom Fest in the future in any formal fashion. I don't see that changing. And if I do have anything else to say about it, it's simply that there's a possibility we're going to make a film called The Most Canceled Filmmaker in America. After we get Q Sent Me and The Steal, our other two films that will release in the next 12 months, we may do a film sort of about the nature of cancel culture from the perspective of our experience trying to make counter narrative films. And if we do that, it will definitely have a chapter on the Freedom Fest debacle. So that's what I'll say about that.
All I'll say to that is that I hope before you get around to that, I hope I can do a video about how the Confederacy was objectively correct, so that way I can appear in your film about being canceled.
Whatever you got to do, man. There's definitely a few topics you could speak out on, and it'll result in swift cancellation. So,
Well, sort of making a segue from there, I know that this whole scenario has been crazy for you, but I imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine that as a filmmaker, you want to talk about things you want to talk about, right? Things that interest you personally, or things that you feel like stories that should be told that are not being told elsewhere. You don't have to make a documentary about why taxation is theft, right? The information is already readily available, and that's a relatively milquetoast topic, as opposed to some of the topics you have covered. But then again, I imagine you full well know that when you're formulating an idea or filming a documentary, I imagine you know what's spicy and what isn't. You know what's going to make waves and what doesn't, even if you maybe don't know the extent to which waves might get made.
Yeah, and go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, no, I was just going to say, just to kind of turn that into a question, is how has it reminds me of that old axiom, the obstacle is the way, that sometimes the challenge can sort of show you the blueprint on how to move forward. How has this whole scenario sort of colored how you conduct business going forward?
Yeah, well, I'll say two things. Number one, I'm fortunate, and this was intentional. I've built a commercial production company that does work and has clients that are not related to political or, third rail topics or whatever. And for the most part, it's shielded from all of this stuff, whether because the clients that I work with support me anyway because they're ideologically aligned, at least in some fashion, or they have no idea about it, right? And I'm fairly impervious to being canceled. From a business standpoint. It's just because, that I'm in business for myself. The people that work for me are fully aligned. We try to work with clients that are at least aligned on what I would say the right side of the spectrum. As far as that's concerned. So then what I'm producing in a film standpoint, I'm taking resources I've generated from my entrepreneurship, and that builds the foundation of those projects. And of course, I'm trying to monetize them, and so the fact of the matter is that when I started making these series of films, it wasn't this wasn't as top of mind for me as it was in the past, or as it is now, because if we just put some context around it, I started following the Stop the Steal movement like 10 days after the election in 2020. And even at that point in time, Trump was still on Twitter. Okay. Ali Alexander, the founder of Stop the Steal, was still on Twitter. Like, I was still on Twitter. So it's like the cancellation on the political side of the spectrum had not reached its full momentum until after January 6th. We did have the stuff that happened with like Hunter Biden's laptop that was getting like, suppressed and whatever. And we saw, dirty tricks and cancellation happening around like the COVID regime for sure. But it didn't get to the place that it got around these sort of the political topics around the election and around Jan 6 until after Jan 6. And so I found myself making some films that while I was out there capturing the content, I didn't, I wasn't thinking like, oh, there's no way to get these distributed. I was still thinking like, these are interesting topics, especially when we got the interview with Jacob Chansley, the Q shaman. Like, I was like, oh my God, this guy's a worldwide icon. People know who this guy is. People were going to want to hear the story. But then after Jan 6 and after I lost a bunch of social media accounts, other people did, like, yeah, I started to recognize, oh wow, like this might be more difficult than I thought. Like, we had secured meetings with Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, A&E, you name it, streaming platform, or BBC, all of that. We gotten in conversations with those level players for distribution on Q Sent Me when we first started making it. And then we were getting responses like from Netflix, we're offended you would pitch this to us. This is the Osama bin Laden of Jan 6, like the shaman, right? And so we started to see that like, oh, the regime narrative is really taken over, and like no one's going to take a political risk, or business risk on these films, even though from our perspective, I'm like, guys, 71 million people voted for Donald Trump. Like, there's a massive audience out there that is like, oh, do you want to watch a movie about the Stop the Steal movement? Yes, there's a lot of people who do. Or do you want to watch a movie on Jan 6 that isn't coming from the regime perspective, that like may have an alternative storytelling of this? Oh yeah, absolutely. That audience is there. And so on one hand, it's, that stuff all kind of came by surprise, like the level of cancellation around these topics and how difficult it was going to be to actually get them out to an audience. But what I've taken refuge in, or what I've sort of, what I've put all my chips on the line around, is I've said, listen, an underserved audience is a market force. And ultimately, those markets find a way to get what they want. And whether that's going to be through the black market that we're like distributing like, flash drives like they do in like, lockdown nations, right? Where they're dropping like, flash drives into like, North Korea or whatever. It's like, or if services and companies will just start to develop that are like, hey, listen, we're going to put the anti-Nick Fuentes film and the pro-Nick Fuentes film. We're going to put the regime narrative on the election and, the Stop the Steal version up there. And we're going to have them all up there together because that's better than, I just believe that shift is happening. It's going to happen. I think we're a little early. But and I said, listen, I'd rather just be on the vanguard of this shift in content creation and storytelling that allows me to be totally authentic, that allows me to have total creative control, and that allows me to cover the topics that interest me. And frankly, part of that for me is it's topics that aren't getting covered. Because who wants to watch like the 10th documentary on like organic food, right? Or whatever. And I also don't want to make, like films that only speak to the true believers. That's kind of the other thing. Like, I think if I made a film on taxation as theft, most people who would make a film like that are like looking to make a film that the hardcore libertarians are going to be like, yeah, see, that's what I've been saying, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm up to. I want to make a film that could go on Netflix. Like that a broad group of people could watch it and come away with it having learned something or experienced something in a different way.
Well, I know everybody's really excited for Q Sent Me, which I don't think you're ready to give us an exact date on when that's going to be available. But this is going to cover January 6th, the protest. You have a ton of footage because you were there. You were live on the scene, taking it all in. Exclusive interview with the Q Shaman, all that stuff. Which leads me to the next thing. In our pre-show, you and I were talking about the whole FBI business recently, the weaponization of the FBI, because of course the FBI was just weaponized this week. You know, they weren't weaponized 100 years ago. No, just this week. And the raid at Mar-a-Lago and all this stuff. And I had said, hey, Jason, do you have any comments on that? And you said that you actually have a very personal story when it comes to dealing with that sort of thing. Do you want to tell our audience?
Yeah,
that?
I'm happy to talk about this. So, and this is just developed very recently. So some of your audience may know, I don't know if I spoke about this when I was on your show last, but so last February of 2022, I had received an email from the January 6th committee, and they asked if I would voluntarily cooperate with them and let them look at some of the footage that we'd gotten during the Stop the Steal movement in January 6th. And my lawyer responded on my behalf and said, no, we're not going to voluntarily cooperate, gave them a couple of reasons. And I was like, okay, let's see if I get a subpoena. Let's see if they escalate this. Well, nothing happened. Jan 6 committee, met kind of, it's kind of over, but I think they've got more hearings, or whatever. Who knows if it'll ever be over, right? It's like, who knows if Jan 6 will ever not be the only thing they want to talk about from now till the end of the world. But it's like, as those Jan 6 committee hearings are wrapping up, I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to get subpoenaed for this. Well, then like a month ago, The Guardian did an article about, this other Stop the Steal movie in production. And I was surprised to find out it was my documentary called The Steal. And I was named specifically in the Guardian article along with my filmmaking partner, Paul Eskindone. I was not reached out for comment by the Guardian at all. Like, they didn't ask me anything. They had seen a trailer and a couple of clips online, proceeded to write a huge long article that painted a picture like we had the smoking gun footage between Roger Stone and Ali Alexander planning the insurrection. Like, the article was riddled with some inaccuracies. It made us sound pretty badass though, because it was like they refused to cooperate with the Jan 6 committee, and I was like, "You damn right, we refused." And then, but something was in this article that was really got my attention. They put in that article the reasons that my lawyer had given the Jan 6 committee why we wouldn't share the footage. They said it was around First Amendment grounds, basically, and that we had a fear of the footage leaking. Well, what's interesting about that being in a Guardian article is that information was never publicly given anywhere. It was only in communication between my lawyer and the Jan 6 committee. So the Jan 6 committee, somebody who had access somewhere, something, leaked that information to the Guardian. Okay. That makes it into an article. The Guardian writes an article making it seem like we've got the smoking gun footage. And then Twitter blows up making calls for us to get subpoenaed. Okay. Well, some of your audience is smart enough to know that this is actually how it happens. Articles get written in order to create a pretext for government then to take an action that they wouldn't have done without it. And so lo and behold, 9 days after that Guardian article, I get my first email from the Department of Justice with the FBI CC'd on it. And they are making a more formal request for the content. And so all I will say at this point is that it seems as though a warrant is going to be issued for that content, the specific content that they want. And we have taken steps to put that content in escrow at an alternate location that the government has agreed to essentially not come up in the dark of night, guns drawn, looking for the hard drive, right? This is a move that we made in order to protect life of, family, neighbors, federal agents, also to not create some news, moment. And I'll say one other thing, part of the reason we wanted to do it this way was because I know people who have specific experience around these Jan 6 subpoenas and warrants where they have agreed with the FBI. The FBI has been like, hey, we're going to come out and pick you up Monday. And the person's like, yeah, fine. Well, on Friday, the FBI comes out with a SWAT team, and it's dumb. It's dangerous. It's unnecessary, especially in this situation when we're talking about a hard drive of files, for God's sake. And so it looks like a warrant's going to be issued for those files, that's going to go into the possession of the federal government. And, they're going to find what they find on that. But, so for me, the topic of the, weaponization of the FBI and the Department of Justice against the political enemies, is something that that's a topic near and dear to my heart. And I think that when we see what's going on right now, I think most people recognize that we're seeing political maneuvers happening right now regarding this raid with Trump. Not to say that there's nothing illegal or wrong, but I don't know if the government has ever spent as much money trying to find something illegal or wrong to throw a person in jail for than they have with Trump over the last 5 years. And so, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to have the smoking gun and 11 documents they find, in Mar-a-Lago, but who knows? I think many of us see this for what it is, as part of a plan to make sure Trump doesn't run in 2024, because they can't beat him at the ballot box, no matter what you think about Trump.
Well, that's such an interesting observation about The Guardian, is that perhaps more people are saying that the type of articles they're putting out, that's not reporting, that's a call to action. Yeah. So to speak. And yeah, so that's a very interesting way of looking at modern journalism, as a call to action. We'll wrap up on this. Jason, you and I were also talking a little bit about when all of this was going down with the FBI raid on Trump, and people were digging up all these old clips and articles of actual halfway decent conservatives who before now were saying, we should have abolished the Espionage Act a long ago. It's always been used to target political dissidents. We should have abolished not reform. We're not looking for reformers. We're looking for abolitionists here. Let's get rid of the FBI, right? Because it hasn't been used to target political dissidents this week. It's been used like that all the time. And there was an amazing trending that came up on Twitter. # Ron Paul was right. Now, we're sitting here talking in 2022. The man last ran for president in 2012, retired shortly thereafter that. So let's take a quick trip down memory lane to wrap up. What do you think about seeing that trending # Ron Paul was right, and seeing the old videos? By the way, the old videos of him running as a libertarian as well, all the way back before the Republican runs, where he was saying, I'm not suggesting we put together a committee and discuss the FBI. I'm saying close the doors and burn down the building tonight.
Well, and I think the video I saw was like 40 years old or something. It's like, this wasn't like in his 2012 speech, like, it's decades old. And so on the one hand, what I think is interesting is it's like, well, of course, Ron Paul was right. He has been right. Many of us know this. And, it's good to see more people waking up to that, and then but there's something else I kind of want to point out in this. Right. And it's because I've actually seen a number of libertarians, for example, being like, we've been saying this forever, and it's like, the conservatives start getting on board with some of these ideas, and whether they're really on board or not, obviously remains to be seen. You and I both have very little faith in the GOP, shutting down a bunch of three-letter arms of the government. Sure. Okay. But, I see libertarians sort of taking victory laps about like how they've been warning this for so long. And, this is, we've been saying this for a long time. And, I made a comment online that got a little attention where I said, libertarians will be, saying they were warning about the boxcars, years ago while they're getting loaded up onto the boxcars to the concentration camps, right? Like my point was, like, yes, we all want to be right, and we all want to recognize, like, when everybody else is just catching up to us. But the question I have is, well, what does it actually take for the FBI to get shut down 40 years ago or 10 years ago or anything? Like, what would it take to get shut down now? And the fact of the matter is that as right as Ron Paul's been for all of these years, Ron Paul also lacked real power in government to enact a lot of the things he would have seen done. And I say the same thing about libertarians and the Libertarian Party. It's like, yeah, guys, Libertarian Party's been right a lot, but right doesn't actually create more freedom for anyone. And so what I'm not here saying is that we shouldn't continue to be right and say, speak truth to these things, even if you're shouting sort of in a void. But what I do want to say is, like, hey, what I think we need to start asking ourselves now is what would it actually take to shut down these organizations? How would that actually be accomplished? And is it going to result because 1/3 or 1/2 of Americans suddenly join the Libertarian Party? Or what paths of power do we need to pursue and get behind in order to try to see these things achieved? And this is where we get into the question of, like, well, do we support the GOP? Do we, is DeSantis good or bad, or, all of this stuff? And it's like, I'm not here with any answers, but what I am saying is that being right about these issues for decades hasn't created any more real freedom for anyone. What we've got to ask ourselves is, now that more Americans eyes are being open to the naked power grabs that both establishment Republicans and Democrats are ready to get behind and are ready to turn the full power of the federal government onto the people, what is the mechanism? What is the strategy that is going to work, or that's going to result in moving the needle to trying to produce the outcomes that we've been right about for 40 years?
Well, the way I like to sum that up is that might makes right is morally wrong, but it's objectively true. Well, on that note, Jason, where can people?
That's kind of a black pill, man. I'm gonna go cry and drink some.
I mean, I'm sorry. I know that there's people out there who say, "Oh, you're a black pill." But see, that's the thing, though, is that I'm very black pilled when it comes to fighting over the one ring in terms of federal power. But I'm incredibly white pilled when it comes to your community and your family and your state and your city and your county. I mean, the 10th Amendment, we're big 10th Amendment center guys here. So, I mean, I think that there's plenty of area for optimism. It's just directing what little resources we have in the right direction.
And I will say, and libertarians have been on the federalism bandwagon for a long time. And by the way, we're seeing the surge in the popularity of federalist concepts, and it coming into the mindset of more Americans as a result of COVID and what we saw happen there. And so, that the white pill for me is the same, or, the optimistic side of this is that, hey, listen, more people are open to decentralization, localism, all of this, and trying to figure out how can we erect, solid defense at the local, county, city, state level against federal encroachments. Yeah, I definitely think that's the route we want to go and we want to be looking at and move the conversation in that direction.
Well, speaking of being erect, Jason, where can people go to support you and get more announcements of your upcoming projects?
Yeah, so our film Q Sent Me is at qsentmemovie.com. We just dropped a new trailer there. That will be releasing before the end of the year. And so that's one thing you want to keep an eye out for. People can check that out. I also have a Substack, cancelproof.substack.com, where we periodically post podcasts, articles, updates, things like that. And that is free to join. And you can sort of stay on top of things that are developing. But yes, we do have the film, The Most Canceled Man in America, the full 47-minute version of that film. So at Freedom Fest, it was only a 21-minute short. We have a full 47-minute film that is going to be released next week. So if you want to, figure out where you can watch that, go to cancelproof.substack.com and sign up for updates. And then, Q Sent Me will be coming hot on its heels. And we're excited to see what happens from there, man. So, but thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Well, we're excited as well, Jason. We're going to get you. We got one more for you. We're going to get you out of here on this one. Are you ready for the bonus round? Is a waffle a cake?
Man, that is a great question. A pancake. If a pancake is a cake, then a waffle is indeed a cake. Because the, difference between ingredients, batter, and cooking methods doesn't change the fundamental, ontological being of the food, I would say. So I'm going to go with a waffle is a cake.
That is correct. A waffle is indeed a cake. Jason, it's very important for us to shame our friends and neighbors who eat cake for breakfast. That is not the way to start your day. Jason, you're a real libertarian. I knew you would get it right. Jason, thanks for being with us, buddy. Man. Guys, we're going to be back to wrap up the show right after this commercial break. Stick around. If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Alan Mosley TV. You can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Alan Mosley TV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com, you guessed it, Alan Mosley TV. If you're right now on Odyssey, go support a free speech platforms. Odyssey, It's Too Late with Alan Mosley, or at Alan Mosley TV. If you're more of a listener than a watcher, your favorite podcasting platform choice, thanks to Anchor FM. It's anchor.fm/Dave, what is it?
Alan Mosley TV?
Yes, that's Jesus. All right.
I didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
Dave, do you have a final thought?
Man, Jason, that is a wild story that he's
still
living.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna have to talk about that. Catch me up a little bit. This is fun. Great show. Starting to get the hang of it.
This was a great show. This was a banger.
Mm-hmm.
Cat Jam certified for our Twitch friends who were in the know. Our boomer audience doesn't know what I just said, but it's okay. After party?
Yeah, real quick party.
Little quick party. No balls tonight, though.
No balls. No balls.
No, those. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, well, I mean, not now, but later.
Any promises?
Twitch.tv/Alan_Mosley. But if you're not going to be there, thanks so much for watching another episode of It's Too Late, and we will see you next week. Alan said no balls, people.
No balls.
Exclamation mark play. Wabi Sabi, I like seeing my balls on screen.
We didn't get one exclamation point play during the stream. I'm pretty proud of them.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe they're all balled out after Monday. I don't know.
It was pretty intense.
A wild one. Yeah. I tell you what, if we get $50 in donations on PayPal during the after party, we'll watch some balls collide. What do you think?